My name is Nadia. I am 27, and after an 18-hour shift at the hospital, I came home and the key did not fit the lock. My stepmother stood at the threshold and said $40. Ling ling ling. And we will let you in. Kira, you need to go on vacation. I nodded clearly and left. And in the morning, she found an envelope by the door and screamed so loudly that the neighbors jumped out of their houses. There is a special kind of fatigue that is not caused by lack of sleep. It nests in the bones, pulsates, fills the emptiness in the chest where joy used to live. It was with this kind of fatigue that I returned home. 18 hours on duty is not just filling out paperwork and taking temperatures. I broke my rib doing CPR on a boy, while his parents were rushing around the emergency room. 3 times during my shift, I registered death. I pulled 2 people back from the other side. There was dried blood on the sleeves of my scrubs, and my skin was completely saturated with hand sanitizer. Everything I wanted was missing. Everything I needed. This shower, normal food, and at least 4 hours of sleep before the morning shift. That was my entire wish list. So when I drove up to the house in Riverside and the key wouldn't turn in the lock, my brain refused to accept it at first. I twisted it this way and that, shook it, stared at it. Maybe something would change. The door swung open. Stepmother Larissa was standing on the threshold, wearing yoga pants and a t-shirt with wine stains. In one hand was her iPhone. In the other, an angry expression. "Oh," she drawled, as if she had forgotten about my existence. "Look who's here." Behind her, on the couch, sprawled my stepsister Kira, wearing my hoodie. She scrolled through TikTok videos as if the house were her personal property. Her boyfriend, Tyler, who hasn't lifted a finger since we moved in, was finishing off my Cheetos. "The key doesn't fit," I said. "Right. We changed the locks. The rent went up. Do you want to live here $40? 000 for all the years of living here for utilities. Kira needs a vacation. And you're not a poor doctor now," she said in the tone of a benefactor. I stood with my bag in my hands, my sneakers stuck to the doormat. I was silent, looking at her. Carefully looking at the woman my father had married when I was still learning to braid my hair. The one who told me to call her simply Larissa. Stepmother sounds too formal. But she never treated me like family. "Those that know?" I asked. She smirked. "Your dad's deployed overseas. He's gone for now. I'm in charge of the house. I make the rules here." I looked over her shoulder into the living room. My old textbooks were lying where I'd left them. My name was on the utility bills. I paid for them last month. "Got it." I nodded. She turned around and walked to the car. Without a scandal. Without slamming the door. She simply left. That night her chest ached more than after any shift. She slept in the staff break room on a hard couch, wrapped in a scratchy blanket that smelled of disinfectant. In fits and starts. Superficially. They were celebrating at that time. Probably clinking glasses. Discussing a brilliant plan. Maybe Kira even posted a story on Instagram with some sarcastic caption about freeloaders. They just didn't know one thing. I had been waiting for this moment for years. In the morning, while they were sleeping off their hangovers, I came back, knocked once, and put the envelope right in the middle of the doormat. So she would definitely see it. Then she drove to the fence and began to wait. In 15 minutes she was like clockwork. Always at 9:02, she checks the front porch. The door creaked open. Larissa in fuzzy slippers with a coffee mug. Best mom in peeling glitter. She bent down, picked up the envelope, opened it, and screamed. She didn't gasp, didn't scream. She howled, as if someone had died. The lights came on in the house across the street. The neighbor's dog barked loudly. The curtains twitched. The neighbors came out to their front yards. I sat in the car and watched her face twist. Rage. Panic. Incomprehension. As if she had just been told the world was ending. "Kira!" she screamed. My stepsister crawled out, squinting from the sun. Looked at the paper and screamed too. I didn't move. Didn't smile. Just waited. This was only the beginning. This house used to be my refuge. As a child, I would run here after soccer practice. After school with scraped knees and hurt feelings, there was always orange juice in the fridge. My father smelled of hospital soap and disinfectant. He would come home late, but still sit next to me while I did my homework, and doze with a medical journal on his lap. Mom made the house warm, literally and figuratively. She loved throw blankets, vanilla candles, long hugs. Then she died. I was 12. A car accident on I-95. In the morning, she was choosing decorations for my birthday at Target. By evening, she was gone. My father did not cry at the funeral. He held on for me, but I remember how tightly he squeezed my shoulder on the pew, as if he was afraid, if I let go, we will both fall. For a while, it was just the two of us. Two people in one lifeboat trying not to rock. Then Larissa appeared. I was 15 when they got married. She had a daughter, Kira, my age. But we are like from different planets. Kira is one of those who calls adults by their first names and thinks that makes her more mature. She played music loud in the kitchen, rolled her eyes at everything. If got a new iPhone on her credit card every 6 months. According to her, I was quiet, studious, and weird. That same year, my father was deployed overseas. Army medic, Department of Defense assignment, Middle East. He said temporarily. He said he would return. I wouldn't have time to miss him. Larissa promised to look after me. She didn't watch. She took over the territory. Everything changed overnight. The throw blankets disappeared. The vanilla candles were replaced by sterile eucalyptus ones. Mom's photo disappeared from the hallway. No one discussed it. I remember asking once, "Can I have it in my room?" Larissa looked at me as if I had suggested hanging roadkill on the wall. "Isn't it time for us all to move on?" she said. Translation: Isn't it time for me to finally erase your mother from memory? I kept my head down. Studied. I got into medical school early on a full scholarship. Tried not to show up at home. Internships. Part-time jobs. Summer rotations. I returned only for holidays or between apartments, and even then I paid my share. More than I should have. I bought groceries. Chipped in for utilities. Fixed the garbage disposal when Larissa said she didn't want to deal with repair guys. Thank you. I never heard. Kira dragged Tyler along when we were 19. Older than us. Covered in tattoos. Unemployed. But according to Larissa, no one understood him. He practically moved in with us. Ate our food. Screamed into his gaming headset at night. He's family, Larissa said. Funny. I'd never been called that. By the time I graduated from residency, I had lost hope for justice. But I still paid and helped. I didn't want drama. Conflicts. I wanted peace. I thought if I stayed quiet and generous, maybe they'd leave me alone. They didn't. As soon as I started getting a decent salary, like flipping a switch, all conversations at the table turned to money. Larissa kept dropping passive-aggressive hints about how expensive it was to raise girls, how long I had lived here for free. Then the hints became direct demands. Could I chip in more? Even though I was already paying more than everyone else, Kira. You see, never had a proper vacation. She deserved to travel. And then, when I was heating up the groceries I had bought in the microwave, Larissa straight up demanded that I compensate for all the years I had lived under her roof. Kira nodded from the couch. It's fair. You're a doctor now. Not broke. I was silent, looking at the slowly rotating leftover pasta and thinking, what's it like to be robbed in your own kitchen? A few days later, the locks were changed. And then I gave them the letter. There was no anger in it, only cold calculation. A businesslike formal demand letter requiring that the living space be vacated within 30 days. Attached to it was a copy of the deed with my name listed as the owner. What they didn't know and never cared about was that the house had been put in my name when I turned 21. My father had bought it before his marriage to Larissa. Premarital property. and he had quietly transferred it to me through a lawyer. Without saying a word to her. Just in case. He explained then. I want you to be protected. No matter what happens. I never flaunted it. Never used it as leverage. I continued to pay my bills. Behaved decently. Hoping that one day they would start treating me like family. Instead, they changed the locks and demanded $40. Ling ling ling. So I gave them 30 days to get ready. They took it badly. As soon as Larissa saw the papers, her scream echoed throughout the neighborhood. Kira jumped out, snatched the documents, and also screamed something unintelligible. It wasn't heard from the car, but her face showed pure panic. They didn't believe it. Later, a voicemail from Larissa. We will get a lawyer. The documents are fake. You think you're the smartest. You're wrong. Then the text messages started pouring in. How could you do this to us? This is betrayal of family. After everything we've done for you, your father will find out. We'll tell him. I didn't answer. What's the point? The house never belonged to them. They just didn't think the day would come when I'd stop pretending. I spent the night at Jake's. A friend from residency. The type of guy who always has protein powder in his blender and asks minimal questions. I told him briefly. Family problems. Temporary. He offered a spare room. Gave me a blanket. Cool. Just don't touch my workout gear. The calls didn't stop. Larissa. Kira. Even Tyler took turns, spinning the guilt carousel. Are you really going to throw your family out on the street? We took care of you when there was no one else. After everything we gave you. Funny. I strained my memory and could not recall a single instance when Larissa gave anything without conditions. Side eyes or snide comments. Except that she generously gave away her anxiety. I ignored calls. Messages piled up unread. I thought they would go crazy for a couple of days and then calm down. No way. Larissa changed her tactics and went online. In 2 days. A Facebook post. It's sad when the one you raised turns their back on you. Some forget who fed them all these years. Subtle. Kira joined in. Made a TikTok. A story from life. My stepsister is evicting me because we asked her to pay rent at least once. Crying emoji for effect. Trending audio on top. Messages poured in from distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Larissa seems upset. She says you're being aggressive. I sent the screenshots to my lawyer and didn't answer them. Instead, I sent my attorney a folder copy of the deed. Property records. Demand letter. Screenshots of Larissa's posts and Kira's videos. Then I created a new folder labeled Evidence and began saving everything. They spiraled down, and I documented. A few days after the letter, Larissa called again. This time I answered. So you're really doing this? Her voice was shaking. Hello to you too. Yes. I am. You will regret it. This house is a gift to the family. It's a gift to me. Literally. Look at the documents. She muttered something about moral rights. Betrayal. She said she would talk to my father. Let's do it. I said. He'll be home soon. I can't wait. And I hung up. In truth, I had already talked to him. My father called the day after I sent the demand letter. His voice was tired. Not confused. Not angry. Just quiet. I assumed it would come to this. He said. Did you know I didn't know they would lock you out? But I knew they had gone too far. I heard some things. It turned out he had heard about them through mutual friends. Neighbors. People had seen the posts and were writing with concern. At first I didn't want to believe it. But the more I heard, the clearer it became. They weren't just ungrateful. They were actively trying to push you out. And he made it clear he was on my side. Nothing more on the phone. He said, I've seen the documents. I will sort it out. I believed him. But Larissa didn't. She thought she could get out of it. A week before the deadline. On a new message. We will not move out. It's illegal. I am the wife. Half of the house is mine by marriage. Then I sent another official letter through my lawyer. Certified mail. Clarification about gifts. The house is my father's premarital property, bought before marriage, and he had every right to gift it to me. The documents are clean. Deed transfer. Impecable. No loopholes. No mistakes. Just facts. I expected silence. Instead, they doubled down. Kira made a new video. Now she was crying into the camera, telling how her evil stepsister was throwing them out into the street. Larissa posted another dramatic status. Some forget where they came from. We raised her, and she's throwing us out on the street. Screenshot saved in the evidence folder. That same day, a neighbor called. A sweet old lady who used to give us cookies when we were kids. With worry in her voice, they're telling everyone that you forged documents. Nothing to worry about. I'm not fighting for social media victory. I'm getting my house back. And then the cherry on top. 3 days before the deadline, I walk up to the car after a long shift, and there's a piece of paper on the windshield. Printed crooked. If you do this, we'll make sure everyone knows what you're really like. Don't test us. No signature. Only cowardice and desperation. I smiled, took a photo, and added it to the folder. That's the thing about threats. When you have already lost your composure, calm and decency, there's nothing left to threaten with. Let them talk. Let them post. Let them yell. I had documents. I had the law. And most importantly, I had had enough. Thursday. Eviction day. I didn't sleep all night. Not from nerves, but from readiness. That readiness when your chest is tight and thoughts are focused on one point. I printed out the documents. The lawyer is on speed dial, and my patience is buried under 6 years of silence. They hadn't packed. Of course not. The curtains are drawn. Tyler's beat-up Honda is still parked by the fence. There's a Domino's box on the porch. As if that would intimidate me, I arrived exactly at 1000 a.m. Not in scrubs. Not off duty. I took the day off. Put on a crisp blouse. Even did my hair. If they see me as a villain, at least a composed one. I knocked once. Larissa opened the door without makeup. Hands on hips. Not surprised to see me. Just a smirk. We're not moving out. This is the last time I ask nicely. You think you'll break into your father's house by force? I showed a copy of the property deed. This is not his house. It's mine. You have 30 minutes. She laughed. She just couldn't help it. You really think you can kick your relatives out? You already kicked yourselves out. The court order and sheriff's notice have been in your hands for several weeks. You ignored all the deadlines. Kira crawled to the door. Eyes swollen. Either she hadn't slept, or was having her third morning breakdown. This is illegal. You're throwing us out on the street. No. You chose not to leave. I gave you every chance. I looked back. We called my father. He's already on his way. Great. I hope he gets here before the sheriff does. And as if on cue, the Uber pulled up to the curb. My father got out. Tanned. Moving slower than I remember. But the military bearing is still there. Even in a cardigan. He walked up the path and looked at me first. Not at Larissa. Not at Kira. At me? Can we talk step aside so they can't hear? I've read everything, he said. Every document. Every message you forwarded. I'm sorry it came to this. I should have come back earlier. Basically, everything is settled. He nodded and handed over an envelope. What is this divorce papers? Filed through the consulate. Here's the notarized confirmation. I looked at the envelope. Then at him. She never cared about family. He continued. Only control. Appearances. The desire to squeeze everything out of you. I realized it too late. But now I see. I was silent. No words were needed. Then he added. And almost embarrassed, I met someone overseas. She's kind. Gentle. Reminds me of your mother. With her, I feel like myself again. He blinked. I'm not replacing her. He quickly added. But I think I deserve happiness too. You do? We returned to the house. Larissa and Kira were on the porch, like hawks defending their last stand. Father approached first. Let's talk frankly. I know everything. Everything. The lies. Posts. Threats. How you treated my daughter. There's nothing more to say. Kira opened her mouth, probably to blurt out something dramatic. But he interrupted her. This isn't your home. It never was. Pack your things. Now. Larissa grabbed his arm. You're throwing us out after all these years. He pulled away gently. You threw yourselves out. Kira turned to me desperately. You can't. I can. And I am. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't flinch. I just stood there, while the two people who had mocked my exhaustion and called me weak suddenly realized I'm not tired anymore. I've had enough. They tried to stall for time. Protesting takes more time. It's not fair. You've ruined everything. But eventually they packed. Larissa went first, stuffing things into garbage bags, muttering about lawyers and revenge. Kira rushed around the house for hours, slamming cabinets, sobbing into her phone that no one answered. By sunset, the house was quiet. By midnight, it was mine again. I walked barefoot from room to room. The lights were on everywhere. Not because I needed to see anything, but because I could. For the first time in years, this space didn't feel like a trap. It was my home. No tension in the walls. No fake smiles at the dinner table. No guilt for existing. Just silence. Just peace. I brewed coffee at 2 a.m. because no one would complain about the noise. I stood on the porch, wrapping a throw blanket around myself, looking out at the street that Larissa considered her kingdom. It seemed smaller now, less threatening, like I had finally outgrown it. And when I turned around, I didn't see the ghosts of old fights or buried rage. I saw possibilities: clean floors, empty walls, and freedom. My home. My rules. My peace. 6 months passed. Kira moved in with Tyler's parents. She didn't last long. I heard they kicked them both out after a couple of weeks. Something about bills, attitude, and nighttime screaming into gaming headsets. Larissa tried to sue. Lost. Then she tried to play on my father's sympathy. Also in vain. Now he lives overseas permanently. Happier. Healthier with someone who respects him. Last month, he said I haven't felt so calm in decades. And I still work long hours. But now when I come home, the key fits. My refrigerator. My silence. No one begs for money. No one slams doors. No one pretends that I owe for the right to exist. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for the next demand, as if it's all still programmed. But it doesn't come. They're gone. And I'm free. But honestly, did I go too far? Would you do the same story? 2. My name is Angela. I am 30 years old. And my wedding day almost turned into a disaster when my father chose my sister over me. Having agreed to walk me down the aisle, he backed out at the last minute because Regina, my older sister, I had a surprise party that same day. My sister, who had always envied me, seemed to have won again. But that was only the beginning of the story. What my father never expected was who would take his place at the altar. And his reaction, when he found out about it, still gives me the creeps. I grew up in an affluent neighborhood of Boston. And from the outside, our family seemed simply perfect. Our modest but cozy house with a well-kept garden was the envy of the neighbors. My mother planted tulips every spring. And my father taught me to ski on weekends, or we went hiking together in the White Mountains. I still hold on to these memories. In my early childhood, my father Igor was a real hero to me. Tall, fit, with premature gray hair at 30. He had a commanding appearance. But at the same time, the kindest smile. He worked as a financial consultant at Bank of America. And his formal suits, it seemed to me, made him look like a movie star. Every morning, before leaving for work, He would find time to have breakfast with me, asking about my plans for the day, while my mother packed my lunch for school. "Angela, you have the brightest mind I have ever seen," he would say, and the corners of his eyes would wrinkle. "You will change the world one day." Those words meant everything to me. I enthusiastically took on any school project, knowing that my dad would help me make the best presentation for a history lesson or a literature report. When I brought home a report card with straight A's, he would hang it on the refrigerator and take me to Ben & Jerry's to celebrate. My mother, Lydia, was the peacemaker in our family. With her warm brown eyes and angelic patience, she balanced out my father's sometimes excessive strictness. She worked as a registered nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital and always put our needs above her own. I remember how she would sit with me for hours, helping me with my homework or teaching me to bake her famous apple pie, which was the delight of our entire neighborhood. The dynamics in our family changed dramatically when I turned 13. Mom started feeling tired all the time, and after 3 months, we received a terrible diagnosis: pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The next 6 months were like a fog. Hospitals, adults whispering, and my bright, full of life mom fading before my eyes. Her death left a gaping hole in our family that we were never able to fill. My sister Regina is 3 years older than me, and our relationship was complicated from the start, even before my mother died. Regina seemed jealous of my close relationship with my father, tall and athletic, while I was a petite, bookish girl. Regina excelled in sports, and I was drawn to art and literature. Mom always tried to equally celebrate our different talents, but Regina took every compliment to me as a personal insult. After Mom died, the tension between us only increased. Dad threw himself into work, often staying in the office until 9 or 10 p.m. I think he was trying to escape the oppressive emptiness of our home. His absence created a vacuum that Regina, Shirley, quickly filled by appointing herself the new mistress of the house. "Dad has it tough enough without your whims." She scolded me when I asked if he would be home for dinner. "He has important clients. We have to be strong for him." I watched Regina morph into someone I barely recognized. She began cooking, even though her food was nowhere near my mother's, and took over all household decisions. My father seemed grateful for this, and their relationship grew stronger, while my connection with him began to crumble. The business success that followed my mother's death only made matters worse. Father had been promoted to senior partner, which meant more money but even less time. Regina had masterfully manipulated the situation, using guilt and emotional blackmail to maintain her position as his favorite. Angela just spent $5.50 on paint. She would inform him, conveniently leaving out that it was for a school project he'd forgotten about. Or, "Angela said you didn't need to come to her concert at the music school because she knew how busy you were." When in reality, I was counting the days, hoping he would come. By the time I was in high school, Regina had created a completely false image of me for my father. According to her, I was disobedient, ungrateful, and only interested in my friends. In reality, I had retreated into my studies and art to cope with the loss of not only my mother, but increasingly, my father. The worst betrayal happened in 10th grade. When I was nominated for a prestigious art scholarship, the award ceremony was scheduled for Thursday evening, and I reminded my father about it for several weeks. The day before, I overheard Regina's phone conversation with him. Angela told me that she didn't want to make a fuss about tomorrow's event. She said, "She even mentioned that your presence might embarrass her. Maybe you could just send a card the next day." I sat alone at the ceremony, watching the other students with their proud parents, and accepted my award alone. My dad sent a congratulatory text, mentioning that he had an important dinner with a client. I later learned from his secretary that Regina had called his office and said I had asked to reschedule the ceremony, which is why he had scheduled another appointment. When I tried to talk to her, Regina just shrugged. "You always want to be the center of attention. It's pathetic." By the time I was 18, I couldn't wait to go to college. I applied to universities across the country, Seeking to distance myself from the toxic atmosphere at home, Northwestern University offered me a partial scholarship, and I dove headfirst into student life, limiting trips home to major holidays, during which I had to endure Regina's subtle jabs and my father's distant politeness. In my sophomore year, I met Kyle. We were taking the same lecture course on American literature, and he asked me for notes after missing class due to the flu. Tall, with kind eyes and a quick smile. Kyle was an engineering student, and his logical mind balanced my more creative thinking. Our meeting in a Starbucks to share notes turned into a 3-hour conversation, and within a month we were inseparable. Kyle's family was loud and very close-knit, and they immediately accepted me as one of their own. His mother, Linda, an elementary school teacher, had an amazing talent for making everyone feel special and needed. His father, Sam, a civil engineer with a subtle sense of humor, and his younger brother, Matt, welcomed me into their home as if I had always been an integral part of it. During all 4 years of studying at university and at the beginning of our careers, Kyle was my rock. He understood my family problems without judgment, hugged me when holidays with relatives brought me to tears, and sincerely rejoiced at my achievements when my own father didn't notice them. After graduating from university, I got a position in a marketing agency in Chicago, and Kyle got a job in an engineering consulting firm in the same city. We rented a small apartment, and our life together, away from the shadow of my family drama, was healing for me. I kept in touch with my father through obligatory, but usually brief and superficial, monthly calls. Regina, now a real estate agent and still living in Boston, continued to position herself as the caring daughter, not forgetting to remind me in rare conversations that she was the one looking after my father. By age 27, I had been promoted to head of marketing. I was leading campaigns for major clients and had earned recognition in the industry. Kyle had also advanced in his field, and our life together was happier than I could have imagined. The scars from our family life remained, but I had created a new life where I was valued and loved. Kyle proposed to me on our 5th anniversary. He planned an entire day that was reminiscent of our first dates. Breakfast at the cafe where we used to study, a visit to the Art Institute of Chicago that I loved, and dinner at an Italian restaurant where we celebrated graduating from college. When dessert arrived next to my tiramisu, I saw a small velvet box. "Angela," he said, taking my hands, "you've made these 5 years the best of my life. Your creativity, your kindness, and your strength amaze me every day. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" The ring was perfect, a vintage sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. In the joy of the moment, I cast aside any worries about breaking the news to my family. For one perfect evening, I just wanted to be happy. The next morning, I called my father. After exchanging the usual pleasantries, I took a deep breath and shared the news. "Dad, I wanted you to know. Last night, Kyle proposed to me, and I said yes." The pause that followed lasted a moment longer than it needed to. "Well, congratulations," he finally said, in a tone more suited to announcing a minor work accomplishment. "He seems like a nice guy." Then came the practical questions about the date. No excitement. No questions about the proposal. Just logistics. Regina's reaction was even more telling. When I texted her the news and a photo of the ring, her response was so overdone in congratulations that it seemed downright insincere. "Oh my God. Congratulations. Sis? So happy for you. The ring is so beautiful." The countless exclamation points couldn't hide what I knew was seething envy. Regina, at 33, had a string of short romances under her belt, but had never found anyone who was ready for a serious relationship. Despite my family's cool reaction, we began planning. We chose June kinds, which gave us 9 months to plan. It suited Kyle's family, my closest friends, and, importantly, my father confirmed that he was available. "I marked it on my calendar," he said during our next call. and there was indeed some enthusiasm in his voice. "By the way, Dad," I began cautiously, "I was hoping you would walk me down the aisle." Another pause. But this time when he spoke, I heard genuine emotion in his voice. "I would be honored." "Angela." That one moment of intimacy gave me hope that maybe my wedding would help heal the wounds between us. The next months were filled with venue inspections and dress fittings. We found a beautiful historic mansion near Chicago, with a garden terrace for the ceremony. Kyle's mother, Linda, accompanied me to many of these meetings, offering advice without imposing her opinions, and genuinely enjoying every detail. "You will be the most beautiful bride," she said with tears in her eyes during my first fitting. At that moment, I felt the absence of my mother more acutely than ever. And Linda, sensing this, gently squeezed my hand. During the planning, I also became close to Kyle's uncle, Jake, his late father's brother. He was in his early 62s, a retired literature professor with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He never had a family of his own, but he adored Kyle and Matt as if they were his own sons. At family dinners, Jake always started talking to me about books and art, and his genuine enthusiasm was in stark contrast to the reaction of my own family. 5 months before the wedding, I began to notice warning signs. Regina had been dropping vague hints on Facebook and Instagram about some big event she was planning. When I called her, she was non-committal. But as our date approached, I saw more and more posts about searching for a location, discussing catering, mentioning June as a target month. A knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach. The bomb went off exactly 3 months before our wedding. Regina called me on a Sunday afternoon, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Angela, I wanted to tell you in person before you saw this on social media. I'm throwing a party to celebrate my career achievements. On June 10th, I finally reached my sales target to become a broker, and the company is throwing me a grand celebration." My blood ran cold. "Regina, it's my wedding day. You got the invitation 8 months ago." "Really?" She pretended to be surprised. "It must have slipped my mind when I was planning everything with the company. In any case, it's just a coincidence. My event will start earlier, at 11:00 a.m. at a country club. It's supposed to be over in time for your ceremony at 4. So it's perfect." "Perfect," I repeated, my voice shaking. "You're scheduling a party on my wedding day, knowing that Dad will have to choose. Dad can go to both events." She answered smoothly. "He's so proud of my success. But I'm sure he will make it to your wedding. It's not that far." The country club was almost 2 hours away from our venue, which made it physically impossible for any guest from her event to make it to our ceremony, especially the bride's father. After hanging up, I immediately called my father, hoping that he would see through Regina's manipulation. "Dad, did you know? Regina scheduled her work party for my wedding day." "Yes. She mentioned it," he replied casually. "An unfortunate coincidence. But such corporate events are hard to reschedule. This is a big achievement for her. But, Dad, how will you make it to both? You have to walk me down the aisle." "I'll think of something. Angela, I'll go to the first part of Regina's event, and then I'll come to your ceremony. No need to make an issue of it." As the weeks went by, I could feel my father wavering. During our calls, he increasingly mentioned the traffic between venues, asked, "Can't we move the ceremony an hour later?" and debated whether I really needed him to be in the pre-wedding photos. Despite the growing tension, the wedding preparations continued. Final dress fittings, meetings with the photographer, approval of flower arrangements. It all kept me busy. Kyle and his family remained my support, although I could see that they were increasingly worried about my father's indecisiveness. And then, just 2 weeks before the wedding, the phone call confirmed my worst fears. It was a Tuesday night. I was going through the seating plan when my father's number popped up on the screen. "Angela," he began, his voice tense. "I need to talk to you about the wedding." The formality of his tone told me everything before he continued. I've been thinking about the logistics of June 15th and realized I simply won't make it to the ceremony on time. Regina's event is very important for her career. And as a father, I have to be there from start to finish. There's no way I can make it on time. I clutched the phone tightly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. So you've decided not to walk me down the aisle at my own wedding. It's not a matter of choice, he said defensively. It's a matter of practicality. Regina's event starts early, and I can't be in two places at once. Maybe you could ask Kyle's father to walk you. Or your friend's father. I'm sure someone else could do it. Someone else. Like walking your daughter down the aisle is a shift job that can be delegated to anyone. I get it, I managed to say, my voice barely louder than a whisper. I'll still come to the reception, he added, as if offering a generous compromise. I think I'll make it by 7 or so, mumbling a goodbye. I dropped the phone and collapsed on the floor in tears. Kyle found me there when he returned from work and immediately rushed to my side. He's not coming. I sobbed on his shoulder. He chose Regina's party instead of walking me down the aisle. Kyle hugged me tightly, his own anger obvious. He doesn't deserve you. That night, we discussed our options. Kyle cautiously suggested postponing the wedding. We could pick another date, he said, so your father wouldn't have an excuse. The thought crossed my mind, too, but something inside me rebelled. No, I said firmly. I'm not going to change our wedding because of Regina's manipulations. This is exactly what she wants. The next day, Kyle's mother, Linda, called and immediately sensed that something was wrong. I told her the whole story. Oh, honey, she said, her voice full of motherly concern. I can't believe your father did this to you. I don't know what to do. I confessed. Part of me wants to call and beg him to reconsider. But I know that's what Regina is waiting for. Listen to me, Linda said firmly. This is your day. Yours and Kyle's. Don't let anyone ruin it. Your father is making a choice he will regret for the rest of his life. But it is his burden, not yours. Her words gave me strength. But the question remained, who would walk me down the aisle? The idea of going alone seemed like a public admission that my father had rejected me. Later that week, Jake called me out of the blue. Kyle told me what happened. He said softly, I hope you don't mind. Of course not, I replied, touched by his concern. I know it's hard. Jake continued. Family disappointments cut the deepest. Something in his tone told me he was speaking from personal experience. My own father refused to attend my college graduation because he disapproved of my choice to study literature rather than business. Some wounds never heal completely, but we learn to build a wonderful life in spite of them. His wisdom and kindness brought new tears to my eyes. Thank you for understanding, Jake. Always. My dear. And remember, family is not just blood. Family is those who are there when it really matters. The week before the wedding, I was at an emotional low. The next morning, Linda invited me to lunch. In the quiet cafe, she seemed to be collecting her thoughts. There's something you should know, she finally said. Something about Jake that might help you understand why he called. I looked up at her curiously. He's my late husband's brother, she explained. Their father had been a very strict, traditional man who had never forgiven Jake for choosing academia over the family construction business. But you may not know that I was married before my husband. A short, unsuccessful union in my youth. When I decided to marry Sam, my own father refused to come to the wedding because he thought it would be a disgrace for me to marry a second time. He said it would embarrass him in front of his friends. That's terrible, I whispered. It was Jake who offered to walk me down the aisle, she said with a slight smile. He understood what it was like to be abandoned by a parent. He told me, Linda, you deserve to be led by someone who celebrates your happiness, not judges it. Her story resonated deeply with me. I had no idea he did that for you. The hint was clear, but she was too tactful to say it outright. Do you think? I started hesitantly. Would it be inappropriate to ask Jake to walk me down the aisle? Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my dear. I think it would mean the world to him. But it has to be your decision." The next day, I called Jake and invited him for coffee. He agreed immediately. When I arrived at the bookstore cafe, he was already there with 2 cups of coffee on the table. "I took the liberty of ordering your usual," he said with a warm smile. "Vanilla latte with an extra shot of espresso." The fact that he remembered such a small detail only confirmed what I already knew about his character. Gathering my courage, I said, "Jake, I wanted to ask you something." He put down his cup, giving me his full attention. "My father has decided that he won't walk me down the aisle. Linda told me how you helped her at her wedding, and how important it was to her. I wanted to ask, I would be very honored if you would agree to do the same for me." Jake's expression changed from surprise to deep emotion. For a moment he seemed speechless, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Angela," he finally said, his voice shaking, "I can't tell you what this means to me." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure," I answered, feeling myself becoming more confident with each passing second. "In the years I have known you, you have shown me more sincere interest and support than my father has shown in decades. I would be honored if you would walk me down the aisle." Jake reached across the table and took my hands. "Then I accept this offer with all my heart. It will be one of the greatest honors of my life." The weight that had been pressing on me for weeks suddenly became lighter. Jake was right. Family is those who are close, not just shared DNA. The last days before the wedding flew by in a rush. I made one last attempt, calling my father 3 days before the celebration. "Dad, I just wanted to confirm. If you still plan to come to the reception." "Yes. I should be able to after Regina's event," he answered absent-mindedly. "Probably around 8. He swallowed hard. "I also wanted you to know that I asked Kyle's uncle, Jake, to walk me down the aisle." Pause. "Who, Jake?" "He's been very kind to me." "I see." His tone was impenetrable. "Well, I suppose someone has to do it. Since I can't." His dismissive response only confirmed that I had made the right decision. The night before the wedding, we had a small rehearsal dinner. Jake gave a toast that moved many to tears, saying that real family is those who support and celebrate your life. Later, while browsing social media, I saw Regina's posts about her celebration. The photos showed a modest gathering at her apartment, about 15 people at most. It wasn't a grand corporate event, just a casual get-together that she'd arranged specifically to create conflict. Instead of pain, I felt a strange clarity. On the day of the wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows. The bridesmaids, the hairdresser, as the makeup artist, everything was creating a festive atmosphere. But then a text came from my father. "Good luck today. Regina's event starts at 1100. If it ends early, maybe I'll make it by 7. Save me some cake." No word of regret. No congratulations. Just a reminder that Regina's party was the priority. Around noon, Jake knocked on the door, impeccably dressed in a tuxedo. He hadn't come empty-handed. "I wanted you to have this today," he said, handing me a small box. Inside was a delicate vintage handkerchief with lace trim and embroidered blue flowers. "Something old. Something blue," he explained. "It belonged to my mother." Then he handed over a velvet pouch from Linda. Inside was a silver bracelet with a pendant in the shape of crossed paintbrush and feather, a reminder of my childhood hobbies. The attention of these people, not related to me by blood, meant more to me than I could express in words. The ceremony was set for 4 o'clock. Jake was waiting for me in the hall before the garden terrace. "Ready?" he asked softly. I nodded, unable to speak. He offered me his arm, and as the first notes of Pachelbel's canon began to play, the doors opened before us. Walking to the altar arm in arm with Jake, I felt a mixture of sadness over my father's absence and enormous gratitude to the man who had taken his place with such dignity. But all of this faded into the background when I saw Kyle's face, his eyes shining with love and delight. At that moment, I understood with absolute certainty that we were creating our own family, built on respect and genuine care. The reception was filled with laughter and dancing. As the evening wore on, I noticed my cousin Tim, my mother's nephew. He looked excited. "Sorry I'm late," he said, taking me aside. I stopped by Regina's first, thinking I'd hit both events. "But Angela, you should know something about her party." This was not what she told everyone. This was not a work event, just a get-together at her house. He pulled out his phone and showed me his text messages with Regina, where she openly admitted that she had deliberately thrown a party on my wedding day to force my father to choose. The revelation was shocking and at the same time strangely confirming my suspicions. At about 9:30, when the reception was already winding down, my father appeared in the hall. He looked awkward, hesitantly holding a gift bag in his hands. "Congratulations," he said dryly. "Sorry I'm late. Regina's thing ran long. I'm glad you could come at least for the last hour." I couldn't help but be sarcastic. "It looks like it was a nice wedding," he noted, looking around. An awkward silence. "So who ended up walking you down the aisle?" he finally asked. "Jake. Kyle's uncle. The gentleman in the tuxedo over there." Father frowned. "You let a stranger walk you down the aisle. He's not a stranger to me," I said firmly. "He's shown more interest in my life and happiness than you have in the last decade. You missed my scholarship award because Regina lied to you. You forgot about my graduation. And now you've missed my wedding for Regina's fake party." "Fake party? What are you talking about?" At that moment, Tim came up to us. "Uncle Igor, what Angela says about the party is true. It wasn't a corporate event. I was there myself." Father looked at him with distrust, and then at Jake, who had approached us. "It must be you. The uncle who replaced me," Father said hostilely, ignoring Jake's outstretched hand. "Dad." "Stop it," I whispered, burning with shame. "I understand your frustration," Jake said calmly. "But today was important for Angela." "Important?" My father chuckled bitterly. "If it was so important, she wouldn't have scheduled it on the same day as her sister's event. My wedding was planned 9 months ago." I intervened. "It was Regina who set this all up. And Tim has proof." Tim reluctantly showed his father the text messages. His face grew paler as he read. "This can't be. Regina wouldn't do this. She's been doing this for years." "Dad." My voice broke. "She's been driving a wedge between us since Mom died. She lied about me not wanting you to walk me down the aisle." My father looked truly shocked. "She told me it would be humiliating for you because we weren't close." "That's not true. I always wanted you to be close." The realization seemed to hit my father with full force. "I need to talk to Regina," he said sharply, pulling out his phone. "Not now," I pleaded. "It's my wedding." But he had already stepped away, and we heard his angry voice through the doors of the hall. When he returned, his face was flushed. "Regina hung up on me. I'm going to her place." "Dad, please. Let's do this tomorrow." But he was adamant. "So you replaced me with him?" and demanded, pointing at Jake. "Some random old man." "Mr. Evans," Jake said calmly but firmly, "I understand that you are upset. But today is Angela and Kyle's day. Don't tell me what kind of day it is. She is my daughter." "Then perhaps you should have acted like her father," Jake answered evenly. "Being a father means being there. Not when it's convenient, but when it matters most." The simple truth of these words hit my father like a slap in the face. He looked at Jake, at me, and his anger gave way to something like shame. "I have to go," he said and left the hall. We spent our honeymoon in Hawaii. When I returned, I found 5 voicemails from my father, each one more contrite than the last. In the final one, he said, "Angela, you were right about Regina. I talked to her. She confessed everything. She manipulated us both for years. I can't believe I was so blind. I'll understand if you never want to talk to me." But I hope that one day you'll give me a chance to make things right. I'm so sorry I missed your wedding. There's no forgiveness for that. There had been no word from Regina. A month later, my father and I met for coffee. It was a long, painful conversation with tears and mutual recriminations. But in the end, a glimmer of understanding dawned. I want to try to restore our relationship, he said. I know I don't deserve this, but I'd like to get to know the amazing woman you've become. I need time, I answered honestly. In the months that followed, we began a cautious reconciliation. 6 months after the wedding, we had our first family dinner together. Kyle's entire family, my father, and Tim were at the table. I'm grateful for second chances, my father said with tears in his eyes. And for a daughter whose ability to forgive amazes me every day. When it was Jake's turn to speak, he said, I'm grateful for the reminder that family is created by love and choice, not just biology. And I am especially grateful to have found another niece in Angela, whose courage and grace inspire me every day. As I looked around that table at the faces of people who truly cared about me, some by blood, some by choice, I realized that Jake had been right all along. Family isn't just about DNA. It's about who shows up when it matters most. Story 3. After 35 years of silent patience, I decided to destroy the life of the whole family in one day. When they started laughing at my husband's funeral, the small living room in our 3-story house in Richmond, Virginia smelled of white chrysanthemums. Andrew's simple pine coffin stood against the wall. I, Tamara Wilson, Sancha Wu, sat nearby in a black dress, bought with the last of my money. My mother-in-law Gail whispered to her younger daughter Sandra, finally Tammy got rid of that electrician. Maybe now she'll find someone with money. Sandra, Sancha R, giggled. But now, she has life insurance. We'll buy a car for Danny. Olivia, Arshaba, added, and we'll move Tammy into the basement room. I need space for my art studio. All three laughed, covering their mouths with tissues. I looked at the face of Andrew, the only one who loved me, who called me Tamara, not Tammy. He died of a heart attack at 40, leaving me with these people. For 35 years I heard thousands of phrases, Tammy isn't pretty, but she's smart. Let her work. Tammy is modest. She'll give her share to her sisters. Tammy, the eldest, should take care of the family. Being the older sister meant working from the age of 18, living in the smallest room, giving up college for Sandra's music degree and Olivia's various courses. Mother put her hand on my shoulder. Tammy, to be strong, think about your family. We depend on you. Not a drop of sympathy. Only calculation. We need to think about practical things, said Sandra. We have summer plans. Danny wants to go to summer camp. I need money for my certification exams. Mom is going to visit Aunt Lucy in Florida. They were planning to spend my dead husband's insurance money without waiting for the funeral to end. Mother has never said thank you in 35 years. The sisters are used to only taking. For the first time in my life, I felt not sadness, but rage. Pure, burning rage. Andrew used to say, Tamara, you're too kind. They'll eat you alive. I answered, this is Andrew's family. Where else can I go? Now I knew the answer. In the evening I sat in the kitchen, looking at our family portrait. Mother in the center. Beautiful, Sandra and Olivia in new dresses. Ami on the side in an old blouse. Enough, I whispered into the void. 35 years is enough. They didn't know that quiet Tammy had become the most dangerous person in the house. I knew their secrets, controlled their money, and was no longer afraid of loneliness. The story of 35 years of silence. I was born in 1,988 inches, a family that immediately defined my role. My father died when I was 7. My mother was left with 3 daughters and announced Tammy isn't pretty, but she's smart. She'll work and support the family. While Sandra and Olivia, the beauties, will find rich husbands. Childhood ended early. At 8, I changed diapers for little Olivia, while Sandra played with Barbies. At 10, I cooked dinner for the whole family. At 12, I had a paper route, delivering newspapers so I could buy Sandra new shoes for school dances. Tammy doesn't mind. She's the big sister. My mother always explained to the neighbors when they seemed surprised. At 14, my math teacher told my mother, Tamara has real talent. She could get into MIT or Stanford. At home, my mother threw a fit. College costs money. This money is needed for Sandra's future. Olivia's studies. So at 16, I graduated from community college and went to work as a cashier at Walmart. My entire paycheck went to Olivia's SAT prep courses and Sandra's music lessons. Sandra was blossoming. A tall blonde with blue eyes. A real beauty. At 18, she married the son of a car dealership owner. The wedding cost $22. Ling ling ling. All my savings from 3 years of work? This is an investment in the future of the whole family. Sandra will live well. Mother said. But after 2 years, Sandra got divorced and returned home with her 3-year-old son Danny. I will never marry again, she said. All men are bastards. Olivia chose the path of an eternal student. In 10 years, she changed majors 5 times, but never received a degree. My Olivia is educated. She's finding herself. Her mother was proud. And I worked more and more. I became a bookkeeper, then a chief accountant with a salary of $3. $200 a month. But I only kept $1. $500 for myself. The rest went to family needs. I lived in the smallest room on the first floor next to the kitchen. Sandra and Danny occupied a large, bright room on the second floor. Olivia lived in the middle room. Mother, in the most spacious one on the third floor. Tammy is fine anywhere. She's not picky. Mother explained this arrangement. At 30, I met Andrew at a bus stop. My grocery bags fell, and he helped me pick up the spilled oranges. A union electrician. A simple, kind man with a heart of gold. Tamara, they're using you, he said when he found out about my family. You deserve better. This is my family. Andrew, where would I go? We dated for 2 years. And I was afraid to bring him home. In 2015, we got married modestly at City Hall. Then had dinner at Olive Garden. I spent my savings on new furniture for Olivia. 8 years with Andrew became the only happy years in my life. He called me Tamara. And bought flowers for no reason. Respected my work. Are you ever going to get tired of being this family's ATM? He warned. The breaking point. The turning point came the day after the funeral, when the family decided to discuss my future without the slightest respect for my grief. I was sitting in the kitchen at 700 a.m., drinking coffee and looking at Andrew's empty chair. My mother came down first, disheveled and grumpy. Tamara, we need to talk, she said. You can't mourn forever. We have plans. Soon Sandra and Olivia appeared in expensive pajamas that I'd bought them. Tammy. We began mother in the tone one would use to talk to a sick child. Life goes on. And one must think practically. Sandra took the initiative. Andrew was a good man. But let's be honest. He didn't leave a fortune. But there is life insurance. The insurance lady called. Olivia added. 165美元. Ling ling ling. Not a bad sum. 165,000 for my husband's life. They already made inquiries the day after the funeral. This money needs to be spent wisely for the common good, the mother explained. Sandra counted on her fingers. Danny needs a car for $44. Ling ling ling. I need to finish my interior design certification for $33. Ling ling ling. And I need to visit my sister in Miami, added mother. 11美元. 000 for the trip. I sat silent, listening to how they divided my dead husband's insurance. And then, continued Sandra, you need to look decent for your next husband. With the remaining money, get your teeth fixed. Buy normal clothes. And we also need to reconsider the housing situation, said mother. You're alone now. You don't need a big room. And Danny is growing. We thought you would move to the storage room in the basement. We'll fix it up. And Danny will take your room. The storage room. They wanted to move me to the storage room. It's temporary. Olivia hurried to add. Until you get married again. And by the way, Sandra smiled. Next time, choose a richer groom. I don't want to offend Andrew's memory. But an electrician. Well, you understand. You can't live on love alone. Mother agreed. Money is more important. Look at yourself. Olivia added. You've been working for 35 years. And what do you have? A small room and a dead electrician husband. Silence hung over the kitchen. I looked at these people who were planning my life 12 hours after the funeral. Okay, I said. I'll think about it. What's there to think about? Sandra was surprised. It's all logical. We'll spend the money usefully. You'll move into the basement. Find a new husband. For the first time in my life, something broke inside me. 35 years of obedience suddenly ended. The discovery of power. I spent the next 3 weeks in a strange state. Outwardly, everything was as usual. But inside, something had changed dramatically. I went to work, cooked dinner, did the laundry, but now I watched the family with completely different eyes. And what I saw shocked me. It turned out that in 35 years of silence, I had accumulated enormous power over these people. I just didn't realize it. I was not a victim, but the holder of all the keys to their existence. The first discovery concerned money. I sat down at my computer and analyzed the family budget for the last 5 years using QuickBooks. The figures were shocking. My salary of $3.200 made up 90% of the family's total income. My mother received Social Security of $1, sent by Archer, but spent half of it on medication. Sandra hadn't officially worked anywhere for 3 years. Occasionally, she did manicures at home for pennies. Olivia received financial aid of $440, which she spent on cosmetics and Starbucks. Over 5 years, I brought home $429. Ling ling ling. And spent maybe $44. 000 on myself. The rest went to family needs. Renovations to my sister's rooms. Clothes for them and Danny. Food. Utilities. Medicine for mother. And Olivia's endless college courses. But the most important thing was the house. A 3-story house in downtown Richmond cost $275. Ling ling ling. I bought it with an FHA mortgage 8 years ago, when we moved from a 2-bedroom apartment. The family was delighted with the spacious rooms and modern renovation. But only my name was on the deed. And I was the only one paying the monthly mortgage of $2. Lambe. He still had 88,000 left to pay. The second discovery was their secrets. 35 years of living in the same house. And I knew about their every step. Every conversation. Every secret. They were used to not noticing quiet Tammy and discussed their affairs in front of me as if I were furniture. Sandra had been dating married Robert Peterson, a city council member. For 2 years, he promised to divorce his wife and marry her. Regularly gave her money for beauty treatments, $100 a month. Sandra lied that she worked as a manicurist. But in fact, she was supported by someone else's husband. She even had a separate iPhone to contact her lover, which she hid in her makeup bag. Olivia hadn't studied at all for 3 years. Instead of going to college, she worked as a brand ambassador at Town Center Mall, handing out flyers and working promotional events. She earned $200 a month. But at home, she talked about her difficult studies and important projects. She didn't need a degree. She dreamed of marrying a rich mall client. She even had fake transcripts with fake grades. Mother also lied. She received not $1, 320 inches, Social Security, but $1, 980 plus, veterans benefits as a widow of a Vietnam vet. She saved the extra money for a rainy day without telling her daughters. Over 5 years, she saved $22. Ling ling ling. which she kept in a separate Bank of America account. But the most shocking thing was the third discovery. They had been planning to get rid of me for a long time. I accidentally overheard their conversation when I returned from work earlier than usual. They were sitting in the kitchen and discussing their plan. When Tammy gets married and moves out, "We'll sell the house," said Mother. "We'll split the $275. 000, equally among the four of us." Why four? Sandra was surprised. She bought the house. The house was bought with family money. Mother answered firmly. "We all live here, so we all have a right to a share. They planned to marry me off to take possession of the house, and they considered it completely fair. Then I realized the extent of my power. Without my salary, they wouldn't be able to pay utilities, buy groceries, or maintain the house. Without my mortgage payments, Wells Fargo would foreclose in 3 months. But I had something else. Over the years of working as a chief accountant, I had made connections in various organizations, people at the IRS, at banks, at property management companies. Some were good friends. Some owed me favors. If I wanted, I could audit any income, freeze any accounts, create problems with documentation. And I also had records. For many years, I kept a detailed diary of expenses in Excel, wrote down all family conversations that seemed important. Now I understood that these weren't just records, they were evidence. Evidence of Olivia's lies about her studies, Sandra's affair with a married official, Mother's hidden income, the plan. I spent a week thinking about the plan. I could just leave, rent an apartment. I start a new life. But that would be running away. And they deserved a lesson. 35 years of humiliation. And now plans to sell my house and get rid of me like an unwanted piece of furniture. No. It was time to show them who really runs this family. And what happens when quiet Tammy stops being quiet. The plan matured by Danny's birthday. The family planned to celebrate at home. Invite his friends. Throw a party. The perfect opportunity for a public revelation. The birthday revelation, Danny's birthday. April 23 was the day when Silent Tamara died and a completely different woman took her place. By 7:00 p.m. The house was filled with guests, Danny's classmates, neighbors, and several relatives came. Sandra dressed up in a new dress bought with her lover's money. Olivia played the role of a caring aunt. Although I bought the present for my nephew, Mother played the role of a hospitable hostess, treating everyone to cookies I baked with my money. I sat in the corner of the living room and watched this performance. I had a folder with documents in my hands, which no one noticed. "Danny, congratulations on your 16th birthday," Mother proclaimed, raising her glass. "You've become a young man, and we have a surprise for you." Sandra smiled slyly. "We've been saving up and decided to give you a car, used but good." The guests gasped with admiration. Danny's friend Steve whistled enviously. "Wow. You're lucky." "Danny." Danny blushed with joy. "Mom. Grandma? Seriously, a car, of course." "My darling." Mother beamed. "Aunt Tammy gave us money from her late husband's insurance. 44美元. Ling ling ling. Just enough for a good used car." My time had come. I stood up and said loudly, "Sorry to interrupt the party, but I need to clarify something." Everyone turned to me. Mother frowned. "Tamara." We agreed. "Not now. Right now." I answered calmly. "Danny, happy birthday. But no one is going to buy you a car." There was silence. Sandra stood up. "Tamara, what are you talking about? We discussed everything." "You discussed it." I corrected. "But I didn't agree to spend my late husband's life insurance on a car for a teenager." I took the documents out of the folder. "This is a certificate from Prudential Insurance. 165美元. 000 has been transferred to my personal Chase account and will remain there." Mother turned pale. "Tamara, we are a family. You can't be so selfish." "Selfish? I laughed. I supported this family for 35 years. Let's count in front of everyone. I unfolded the financial printouts. Over the past 5 years, I earned $429. Ling ling ling. Spent 44 000 on myself. The rest went to you. The guests looked at each other in bewilderment. Tamara, why are you making a scene in front of people? Olivia tried to interrupt. Because you announced in front of people that you would spend my money. I answered. Now you will learn the truth about yourselves in front of people. I turned to Sandra. Sandra, tell the guests where you get money for new dresses. After all, you haven't officially worked for 3 years. Sandra was confused. I work part-time doing manicures. That's not true. I interrupted and took out the phone bill printouts. You've been dating a married man, Robert Peterson, from City Council, for 2 years. He supports you for $1. $100 a month. The guests gasped. Neighbor, Mrs. Patterson shook her head. So that's what's going on. You were spying on me, Sandra screamed. I lived in the same house with you for 35 years. I answered calmly. It's hard not to notice the second phone and the midnight conversations. I turned to Olivia. And you? Olivia, tell everyone about your studies at VCU. Olivia turned pale. What do you mean you haven't studied for 3 years? You work as a brand ambassador at Town Center Mall, handing out flyers for $2. $200 a month. Your transcripts are fake. I pulled out photos of Olivia in a promotional uniform. Last week you were advertising Pizza Hut. And at home, you talked about your interior design degree. The guests started murmuring. Danny's classmate asked in surprise, Miss Olivia. Is this true? Olivia burst into tears. Tamara, why are you doing this? And now, Mom, I turned to my mother. Tell everyone about your Social Security. My mother jumped up. Enough. Stop this circus. What circus? I'm telling the truth. Your Social Security isn't $1. $100. But $1. 980 plus veterans benefit. In 5 years, you saved $22. 0 inches. A separate account, without saying a word to your daughters. I showed the Bank of America statements. Here's a certificate. The account is in the name of Gail Wilson. The balance is $23. $100. The neighbors exchanged glances, clearly condemning the deception. And most importantly, I said, raising my voice. Yesterday, I accidentally overheard your family council. You are planning to marry me off to take possession of the house. You want to sell it for $275. 000, and divide it equally among the 4 of us. Mother tried to justify herself. We didn't mean to be cruel. We just thought the house was bought with family money. I interrupted. Here's the mortgage agreement from Wells Fargo. Borrower me. Cosigner none. Monthly payment, $2. Lambe. I'm the only one paying. I still owe the bank $88. Ling ling ling. I opened the deed. The house is registered in my name only. You live here as tenants, free tenants. The silence was deafening. Danny asked in confusion, Aunt Tammy. What will happen now? I looked at him with pity. The boy wasn't to blame for the greed of adults. Now, Danny. There will be justice. Mom. Sandra. Olivia. You have a month to find jobs and a place to rent. What Sandra screamed. Are you throwing us out on the street? I'm stopping, supporting grown. Healthy people. I answered calmly. From May 1st. Utility bills. Food. And other expenses are your responsibility. And from June 1st. Either pay me market rent for the rooms or find another place to live. Mother clutched her chest. Tamara. Come to your senses. We're family. Family doesn't plan to get rid of a relative for money. I answered harshly. For 35 years, I've been your cash cow. Now the cow has rebelled. I stood up and addressed the guests. Sorry for ruining the party. But sometimes the truth is more important than politeness. Neighbor, Mrs. Patterson nodded. You're doing the right thing. Tamara. We've long wondered how they exploit you. I headed for the door, but turned around. Oh, and I'm changing the locks tomorrow. You'll get keys when you find jobs. Behind me, I heard screams, crying, accusations. But I didn't turn around anymore. 35 years of silence were over. My new life had begun. The new life. The next 3 months were the most amazing of my life. For the first time in 35 years, I lived for myself and watched as the world of people who considered me a meek servant collapsed. On the morning of April 24, I changed all the locks. When the family woke up, their keys no longer worked. Sandra knocked on the door. Tamara. Let me in. I have to go to work. What work? I answered through the door. You don't work. Go to Robert Peterson. Let him support you. Olivia was sobbing. I have to go to school, to the mall to hand out flyers. You'll get keys when you get a real job. By the end of the week, a miracle happened. All three found work. Sandra got a job as a sales associate at Macy's for $2. 750. Olivia officially registered as a brand ambassador. Mother got a job as a janitor at a daycare for $1. 650. You see, I said, handing out the new keys. When push came to shove, everyone was able to work. Without my money, the family faced reality. Utility bills, $1. Sembai Arsher. Groceries for 4, 2. Lambai. Other expenses. Their total income was $6. Lubai. Expenses $7. Tibay. Tamara. We can't make it. Mother came a month later. There isn't enough money. Use your savings. I suggested. Arshar Mayan. 000 will last several months. This is my money for old age. And what was my money for? By June, they realized they couldn't afford the house. I suggested, pay $1. 100 per room, or look for other housing. Sandra was outraged. Sanmeiyuan. 300 for the house, highway robbery, market price in downtown Richmond. I answered calmly. Without a common enemy, they began to quarrel among themselves. Sandra accused Olivia of not earning enough. Olivia reproached Mother for hiding money. Mother accused her daughters of greed. If Tamara hadn't gotten angry, everything would be the same. Mother shouted. You yourself suggested selling her house, Sandra snapped. My life changed dramatically. For the first time, I spent money only on myself. I renovated, bought new furniture and clothes, signed up for Spanish classes at VCU, got a cat named Whiskers. No one demanded reports on my expenses. Didn't ask for loans. Didn't plan my future. In the evenings I read, watched Netflix, learned to play guitar. My neighbors changed their attitude. They used to say poor Tamara. Her family exploits her. Now they respected me. Good for you. You put them in their place. It was time to show some backbone. By the end of the year, the family had accepted the rules. They paid for rooms, bought groceries, didn't ask for money. The relationship became cold but fair. The only one who made me happy was Danny. Aunt Tammy. You were right, the young man said. Mom and Grandma really did use you. In the fall, I decided to sell the house and move to another state. Not for revenge, but for myself. It was time to start a new life. A year later, I'm sitting in my apartment in Austin, Texas, drinking my morning coffee and smiling. The house in Richmond sold for $275. Ling ling ling. Every dollar went to the rightful owner. The family demanded a share through court, but the lawyers laughed. The house was in your name. You paid the mortgage. Case closed. With the money I got, I bought a 2-bedroom condo, and the rest went into a Vanguard index fund. I got a job as a chief accountant at a tech startup. Young team. Good salary. No one knows my past. Yoga in the evenings. Spanish classes. Books. Whiskers purrs on my lap. A simple life that I dreamed of. Only Danny calls. He got into Virginia Tech. Earns his own money for tuition. Aunt Tammy. You taught me the main thing. Never support anyone for free. I met Michael. A software engineer. Movies. Flowers. No demands. When I told him about my family, he was amazed. How did you last 35 years? I didn't know it could be different. A neighbor wrote from Richmond, former family living in a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts, constantly fighting over money. Sandra never remarried. Olivia working as a cashier at CVS. Mother complaining about ungrateful daughters. I'm not sorry. They got what they deserved. And I got the freedom to be myself. At 36, I finally live my own life. Sometimes it's better to find the courage to say enough and start over. Loneliness and freedom is better than the best company in slavery. My new life is just beginning.